Hey everyone, it's the Shawn. Welcome to an edition of the Journey to CEO show. Today we have Todd Saylor of PayServ Systems. Also has a couple other companies. We'll dive into that, but he's been through the journey of entrepreneur to CEO. So we're looking to collect some lessons today, get some learning, really figure out what we can help you with in your journey from your current position to getting to really being that full functioning CEO where the organization runs independently of you and really does the things that it needs to do to provide you the lifestyle and the comfort and things that you want to accomplish in life. So we jumping in that. Joining me is my regular co-host, Gatty. Say hi,
everyone.
Ann does a lot of culture consulting, working with companies, help them step up to the next level. So we'll dive into that some as we'll be going through the episodes. We hope you're subscribed to the Journey to CEO YouTube channel and following each of us on LinkedIn because we'll be bringing you ongoing lessons. So let's bring Todd Saylor in here. Drop your comments. You might be watching it live or you might be picking up after the fact. Wherever you're watching it, we want your comments. Let us know what you're learning, what questions you have, because we will come back. We will address your questions directly, and we'll also, right back to you. And we may do a future episode based on what we learned from you. So we want to hear from you. Todd, what's up, man?
Oh, my Shawn McBride.
Yes. You are living life.
I know I changed, just not to throw anybody off, I changed you in my contacts. It's not our Shawn anymore. It's my Shawn. So, Ann, I'm jealous. He said you're like do a show with him, and I'm a little jealous, and so I changed his name to my Shawn. So that's just how we're rolling now, Ann.
There we go.
Hey, I think you're down there.
And so you're wearing your Wired Differently shirt, Todd, which I love. Because
I got one for you.
I have Do Business Differently. You have Wired Differently. Very similar thought patterns. Let's just open with that, because people watching on the video version of this are seeing the Wired Differently shirt. Tell us how the philosophy of Wired Differently plays into being a CEO.
Yeah, Wired Differently. I mean, honestly, Shawn, you understand this concept of Wired Differently, but it's an attitudinal disorder. We've talked about it in the past. Mm-hmm. Wired Differently, obviously, is a book I wrote, Leveraging Your Favor on the 7 Fulcrum Principles. But Wired Differently in the CEO prospect is kind of an afterthought in the CEO model and mindset. You know, when we go back and you ask me to go on the show, I'm like, man, I got this. I want to talk about this because I think that Ann would agree. There's really only 2 types of leaders in this regard. You have the entrepreneur and you have the businessman or the CEO. You have the entrepreneur and you have the CEO. You have the entrepreneur and you have the CEO. There's only really 2 types. There's this person who does it from 0 to 1. And then there's this person that is really great at from 1 to 100. And in my mind, Shawn, I really attribute myself more to be that entrepreneur. My appetite as a Wired Differently individual is I'm actually probably more a visionary, more a creative guy. I'm more of an entrepreneur than a CEO, but most entrepreneurs can't get out of their way and they become a CEO. And very few of them can really do it well. So an entrepreneur is this person who really cares more about the process. Mm-hmm. Right, Ann? You feeling me?
Well, I have a question for you. I think when I'm working with entrepreneurs, I see a lot of the entrepreneurs have stuff in their head and they know what they want to do, but sometimes it's difficult for them to get it down in paper, to get the process down, to get the actual idea. Here, they have an idea, but then
we're saying the same thing.
Say, how am I going to get there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Totally saying the same thing. This entrepreneur is this person, a visionary, this person who cares more about the process working, cares more about, at least I'm speaking for myself, and as an entrepreneur and the successful entrepreneurs, business people I know, the entrepreneur that says, hey, I don't care what it costs. I believe in this product. I believe in this vertical process, creating a new world, a new product, making the world better, and we'll figure out how to make it work later. And that's really where I became successful or non-successful, is when I started to realize that I wasn't the one to carry on the dream. Right. I was the action person. I was different, but I was differently because I put action into that adjective of different. So if you can follow me here, so the entrepreneur is this person that has the vision, this will to change the world in a certain way, that they're definitely optimistic. An entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, is definitely optimistic. So remember that word if you're going to think about a word. Definitely optimistic. Now, the business person, or the person that I would say is a little bit counter to entrepreneur, is the CEO maybe that we're talking about. Maybe the business. Your term is the implementer. My term is this business guy. Right. The guy that would rather buy a franchise than to create an idea, right? Am I saying it right? All right, I'm learning something. Thank you, Ann. So that's really the different side of things. So I'm just going to stop, take a breath right now, and breathe, and let Shawn throw something at me and you throw something at me, because I just want to make sure that that's the clear thing. You're either an entrepreneur or you're a business person. You're either an entrepreneur or a business person. That's a quick definition of those, Ann.
I think if you listen, we'll let Shawn explain. In our book, as we're writing, we're talking about the journey that takes you. If you really want to scale and you really want to build out your business, then you're going to take the entrepreneurial ideas and translate that and morph yourself into a CEO. Right on that, Shawn?
Not everybody's going to make the journey, right, Ann? That's one thing we talk about, right? It's not for everybody. It's a different skill set to go from being an entrepreneur to being the CEO.
Right.
Some people want to do the full journey. For some people, it may make sense just to stay in the entrepreneur. We have serial entrepreneurs, right? You build a business to a certain size, you get a concept off the ground, you sell it, right. Somebody else scale it, you start over with another fresh idea. For some people,
Shawn, you keep it. Like in my case.
Yeah. Tell us how you've done it, Todd. Tell us.
I will. So I'm literally an entrepreneur. Steve Jobs. Let's talk. I mean, one of the greatest. Changed the world. Mm-hmm. Clearly an entrepreneur. He tried to be a CEO early on. He got fired, right? Yeah. Everybody know the story?
Yeah.
But they needed him. And then when he came back, he postured himself and realized that he's this idea guy. And so you take a Steve Jobs and you pair him with a Tim Cook, right, Ian?
Right.
There's the perfect image of the two pieces that make the world go round.
Right.
You got a Steve Jobs entrepreneur vision. He finally realized that this is his calling. And then you got a Tim Cook who can't come up with an idea to save his ass because he's there making, I'm sorry, Tim, send me some hate mail. I called you the other day. You didn't call me back. But the bottom line is Jobs couldn't figure out how to make all these phones. He was dead in the water, man. He was like, what? I got a great idea. I'm on to my next idea. And we couldn't fill the orders. Cook comes in. Figures out how to make all these phones. Boom, they're off and running. Jobs figures out the watch. He figures out the TV. He figures out the iPad. You see what I'm saying on how things roll. So honestly, to tell you how I done it.
About you? I want to see how you did it.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'm clearly an entrepreneur. I grew up making donuts, Ann.
Wow, good.
Yeah, I'm clearly the world's best donut maker. And I'm clearly the world's best salesman. So both those are out for debate to some donut makers and salespeople. But no, I grew up in sales. I grew up making donuts. I was making donuts from the time I was 8 till the time I was 21. I built 5 donut shops at the time I was roughly 23 years old and lost them all.
Yeah.
Great ideas, not implementer, right?
Okay.
Right. It's in the book, Wired Differently. So that's when I realized sales was my gab. So I worked through sales. I built the second publicly traded PEO in the country in the 90s. And I sold out of that in roughly 2001, 2002. And then I built my own nationwide HCM called PayServ Systems Incorporated. We're from East Coast to West Coast. We're servicing HCM cloud-based HR payroll companies with employees of over 1,000 or more. I've built 2 staffing companies, nationwide staffing companies. I've built an insurance agency, and I have 7 other organizations, and they all roll up under Wired Differently, Inc. And I have done it completely differently.
Okay.
That's kind of a quick stage. Well, I learned. Well, hey, get the book, right? So here's the thing. I think that there is no secret blueprint. There isn't a formula for success or business, and if you want to argue with me on that, I'd love to have that argument. Everybody is different.
Right.
But the key secret sauce to that is, what are you doing that's different? It's either service, it's either an idea, it's either a concept, It's either a process or it's just your willpower of being able to take it across the line. There's a quote in my book, chapter 3, the distance. It's not the efforts that we make it's the distances we're willing to go. So I think that my life and my success in life has been embodied by this idea of sheer willpower. Okay. Cradled with good ideas and good implementation. And so implementation was my failure early on. Implementation has always been my nemesis. And we talk about this in the book, that implementation becomes my land of quo. This area that's a danger zone for me, that I have to steer my way out of and recognize and move away from the drift of those insufficiencies in my life. I see you have a question.
Yeah, I do. And I'm just trying to think how to word it. When you say you have ideas and you are going to roll those ideas out, are you testing it with target audiences? How do you know people want your ideas? How do you start to know that?
Well, honestly, I'll just be honest. Most of my stuff is instinctual.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not your textbook. Again, I'm different, and I'm differently. I haven't been a scientific entrepreneur.
So you've actually just as you've gone through life, you've just noticed certain things that may inspire others, or you've done donuts, you realize there's a need somewhere along the line on some of these other companies that you say, hey, I can do this differently, or I can do this better. Does that sort of get you?
Yeah, well, I think it's a personality trait, I think, of both a business person and an entrepreneur, is that you look at something and you automatically think you can, if it's in your wheelhouse, I can do that better.
Right.
Okay, and so that's one of the personality traits in my second book that I'm writing, called Wired Differently, 7 Traits of Wired Differently, obviously, people. So, yeah, I'm a bit of a narcissist when it comes to that type of conversation. I really do think I can do it better, and I'll show you I can do it better. But I want to go back to this concept of there's no blueprint for a successful business. I think that, especially in this day and age with technology and ideas and everybody rushing to that promised land, that soundbite or that product, I mean, it's hard to even get a trademark anymore.
Well, yeah.
So go ahead, Shawn.
I think you have to be a problem solver.
Yeah.
That's what you have to be, problem solver.
A lot of people out there selling this one solution, and I think that's it, right, Ann? It's a problem solving, it's a situational awareness, it's a familiarity, it's a brainstorming and working through problems. It's the key. Yes, there is no one, I don't believe there's any one formula to build a business. There are commonalities, there are a lot of different, there's things that work for other people that you can try. But, I think you and I probably both have had this experience, Todd. We've tried what other people told me. People told me to buy the fanciest suits and look like the standard lawyer, and I did that for a while. And you can see what I'm wearing today, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to look like a regular guy, like a regular business guy ever again. I mean, and so I don't want to frustrate Ann. I just want to explain to her that
I think that what you're saying, and I've done an awful lot of research on entrepreneurs. And what I'm finding, one of the traits is that entrepreneurs are willing to figure it out.
We don't have a choice, Ann.
Idea, and then I'm going to roll it out, and I'll figure out how it works.
Let me explain to you something, Ann. Let me clearly explain something to you. You are so right, and here's the deal. An entrepreneur, an attitudinal disordered, wired differently entrepreneur, which I'm promoting because I'm that guy.
Right.
We're obsessive. Okay, so when I left the PEO world in the 90s, I knew that industry was not going to be for me and was going to fail the way it was going. So I took the good things from that industry and helped create this new industry called the HCM, Human Capital Management. And we do it in a cloud calculating component. We were there first in all these things, but we're not the biggest. But I actually helped create one of the products called Pay-As-You-Go Workers' Comp and certain things that came from the PEO industry into this HCM world. And I'm not expecting you to understand it, but that piece of freshness, that idea of driving and saying, I'm not going to sleep until I build this product.
Right.
We stay awake at night. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you how sick it is the narc in me, the narcissist in me. I'm going to tell you how sick the mark and the competitive side of you is that unfortunately, my system runs in the fight or flight autonomic nervous system on the sympathetic side of it. 90% of the time, I'm always in fight mode, right? If you follow me, I'm always in fight mode. I don't get down to parasympathetic mode. You know, there's a good book called Zebras Don't Have Heart Attacks.
No. It's why zebras don't get ulcers.
Well, zebras don't get ulcers or heart attacks. Okay, because if you 1 minute, Shawn, the lion's chasing them out of the jungle.
Right.
A second later, right, Ed? They're having a chow. They're having a cup of coffee. They're eating weeds and grass. They don't care because they're parasympathetic.
I've got that book on my bookshelf.
I love you, Ann. Okay, so this is whole concept, and unfortunately, dive into that. An entrepreneur like me, they're not all like me, thank God, right? Can't zone down. We're laying in bed, our brain is zipping along, and we're crushing. We really believe that if we don't solve this problem, then we can't solve the big problem, and we will literally lose our families, lose everything we have, lose our wife, lose our life, destined to poverty. The rest of it comes out into us, and unfortunately, it's unhealthy.
But that's what I talk about, the idea that a leader has to be inspired in what they're doing, where the trajectory, where they're going, what problem they're solving. And from that inspiration is what follow. And if you are interested in really taking it broad, which is what Shawn and I say, some people transform from being that inspired entrepreneur to then being able to say, I'm inspired to see other people inspired. And so then that becomes the start of a CEO mindset.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. The CEO is the dude that shows up and starts sharing.
Right.
The entrepreneur is more about, they know they want to share something. In my case, I can't wait to share, but if I don't get my SHIT right, nobody's getting anything, right? Right? And so that's really the disease. That's the disease. And
if an entrepreneur wants to really share their particular product or service or solution, and they, like you say, implementation is not your thing, the smart leader is going to then say, I'm going to hire someone to do that. And I'm going to continue, like the Steve Jobs, I'm going to continue being the ideas man, and then I'm going to have the Tim Cook in there.
Okay, so here's the problem with your term CEO and businessman and entrepreneur, because I have a message called "You can have your plan and eat it too." Okay, and it's this whole concept, Ann and Shawn, of being this entrepreneurial mindset. Your major is vision. Your major is entrepreneurial.
Right.
Your minor is business, or in your case, I'm afraid you're throwing everything in this poor CEO guy's basket, which is not fair. So my point is this: here's how I've done it, and it's taken me a lifetime. And there's a lot more people that have solved cancer and polio and big deal things than what I've done. But I have relatively stayed afloat for 25 years and had a great life and helped a lot of people, and we're still doing it. So the bottom line is, the vision's here, the obsession's here, the success finally happens, but my minor is business.
Right.
I want to stay in the vision to propel the business, but I promote myself to CEO. But the bottom line is I've never relinquished that role. I de-promote myself, what would be, I fire myself from operations. I fire myself from sales.
Right.
I fire myself from executive vice president. I fire myself from the president of the company. And right. I clearly outlined that all I want to do is collect checks, create vision, and kick ass and make people successful.
Yeah, and that's what we think, right? I mean, a good CEO, and we talk about this we have a table in the beginning of our book, and it talks about, the characteristics, right? And the CEO doesn't spend their time worrying about, are we delivering on the Jones account this week, right? Or, oh my God, Sally called out today. We've got to get somebody else over to, Mr. Jones's office, right? That's not what a true CEO is doing. A true CEO is talking about where are we going to be in 5 years? What's this organization doing? How can we serve our customers?
How do we get there?
Do we need to change our offerings in the market because market conditions are changing? These are the types of issues that a true CEO is dealing with every day, rather than dealing with a fire because somebody called out sick, or because, one issue happened in the operations.
And Ann, here's the thing I know that you've got in your book. And it's this entire concept of you can only rise to the level of what? Your greatest weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
and
why
so,
we have also in the book, we talk about that you really need to know where you want to go. That's what an entrepreneur has to have, that trajectory. But you also can design an org chart for when you are fully developed as a company. What does that org chart look like? Now, when you're starting out, you're everything. But like you say, just what you said before, you fire yourself from sales, or you fire yourself from the marketing end, or you fire yourself from different aspects, different functions, and you replace that with someone else doing it, so that you always stay in your wheelhouse. That's the most important thing for an entrepreneur building out a business, is to know how to get out of their own way.
And I just fired myself from being the vice president of the company, and I'm soon to fire. This is a big deal to get fired in my company, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to fire myself as the president any day. I can't wait. I just can't wait. I can't. I'm telling you, I'm going to be fired like 3 times this year, and it's the greatest thing to ever happen to me in my life.
There you go.
Wired differently, baby. I don't know what to tell you, Shawn. Don't have me on this show.
What's the biggest challenge you've faced in building your business?
Oh my gosh. All right, so the biggest challenge I've ever faced in building a company, we're gonna take the one out that most everybody always has, right? And that would be money. Fair enough, Shawn? Fair enough, Ann? Let's just pretend money's not a problem. The biggest problem I think I've had is conditioning people to understand things the way I understand them.
Okay.
Because here's the problem, and here's the issue, is that I'm right. Right? And so, and I'm going to explain that a little bit, because we're going to go back to this definitely optimistic side of an entrepreneur. So the hardest thing for me was early on, was to build people that could help build what I envisioned. Mm-hmm. Fair enough?
Right.
Take a step back. I'm not always right. I'm going to tell you I'm not always right, but there is a definitely optimistic side of this entrepreneurial secret sauce that I've had. And it's this narcissist side of me, okay? In my book,
right?
Chapter 2, The Narc, okay? This is the book I'm writing. But I want you to understand, it's okay to be a narcissist. Let me rephrase it. It's okay to have narcissistic traits. It's not okay to be a full-blown narcissist. But the bottom line is...
I'm going to argue with you and say it's okay if you're the entrepreneur to have narcissistic traits. It is not okay with a CEO. That's
okay. Then we would fist fight over that one, because I would tell you that a leader is a CEO. Would you not agree that a CEO is a leader?
Depends on the CEO.
Well, if your CEO isn't a leader, you need to fire his ass. Here's the thing. A CEO has to be definite. He has to be certain in the path of an organization. There's no question about this, Ann. If the CEO doesn't have the path, doesn't have the leadership skills, doesn't have the ability to look at every person beneath him in that or her in that hierarchy of chain and say, this is where we're going, this is how we're getting there, you better get on board, then that's who I'm following. I don't want the
and not listen and include the voices of the individuals that are working with him or her, then they're going to be major problems in that.
They will fail.
So that's where the narcissism has to be checked.
Yeah. Narcissist. Listen, I love the fact that you're not afraid to throw the word around, because I thought it would just like sizzle your hair on your head, but it didn't. So you're already cool. You're already cool in my book. This is good TV if we were on TV. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Ann. But at some point, the CEO has got to gather all his information,
Right.
test the wind, do whatever you want him to do. But at then one point, he's got to come out of the gate and say, "Here's where we're going now. How are we going to get there?
Right.
Here's what I see. Now let's fill in and let's do it better." Because everybody on my board, everybody on my team is smarter than me in everything that they do, that they've been aggregated to do. And that's your CEO, and that's the person you're talking about.
Right. I mean, you have to be able to not only have a vision, but be able to explain that vision to other people, include their ideas before you execute.
Yeah. Fantastic. I think tons of lessons, Todd. Anything burning in your head that Ann and I didn't ask you about today that you think somebody that's on this journey to CEO needs to know?
Well, I think you need to understand your lane, whether you're in the role of what we call a perfect competition model, or you're in a monopoly model. I think that this perfect competition idea is this idea of redoing something somebody's already done and trying to do it better and constantly be competing, right? A lot of people go out of business that way, no matter how good the leader is. Right. And then there's this other idea, Ann and Shawn, of this monopoly side of the role. Well, nobody really wants to say the word "you got a monopoly," but let's talk about Facebook. Let's talk about Apple. Let's talk about this idea or concept that we want to get into a space. Let's take away the dirty word monopoly. We want to get into a space that there's very little or less competition in, so you can thrive and set your marketplace. I will not ever come to your house unannounced. I'll just let you know that right now.
I wrote a book called Leadership Unleashed, which is where I use my Great Danes. So.
Oh, I've had 4 Great Danes.
I have 2 right now.
I don't have them anymore. Unfortunately, it's a sad day when we have to move on with them. Yeah, 9 years, you're lucky, right? All right, so that was really something. What's that, Ann?
I've been working. My 9-year-old Beretta has been a therapy dog for 8 years.
Oh, wow. So anyways, I just want to make sure that there's that. I kind of want people to understand whether they were a globalized or a horizontal type of business, or vertical, where they're creating new places, new paths to go. And then there's just idea of carving your own place in this monopolistic, if you will, creative world. I think that when you're starting a company,
I think people would call that a blue ocean.
Okay.
As opposed to a red ocean.
Yes. Blue ocean. Yes. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I look forward to the next conversation, because you guys clearly are thinking this out. I don't have all the answers. I just have some good ones.
No,
and
I think
some trials.
That's part of Ann and I's philosophy, is we don't claim to have the only answers to things. We claim that we can help facilitate discussion. We can help people bring principles that work for other people, but there's always more to it than just one thing, right? So critical that people think that way. Todd, great information. I know you got your wonderful book out there, Wired Differently. You got T-shirts, you got other great stuff. How do people go hunt you down and get onto the Wired Differently mission and learn more about it?
I'm so excited. I mean, you keep bringing me great people, and you are spectacular. Listen, if you could go to wireddifferently.com, I would really appreciate it. Wireddifferently.com, wireddifferently.com. There's apparel on that site. There's books on that site. There's a workbook on that site. Love your comments. I love to interact. And hey, if you want to give me a shout out at Todd at wireddifferently.com, I'm available to come speak. I'll do podcasts. I love to talk about not only Wired Differently, but your businesses. I'm even good at relationships at some point. I think one of the things you said about, did you say something about crisis early on? What were you saying about crisis?
I was talking about bottlenecks, maybe.
Bottlenecks and crisis. There's one line I just kind of like to close on. Someone says, Todd, why are you so good at crises? Well, I'll tell you why I'm so good at crises, because I'm an entrepreneur. and I'm in crisis mode all the time. I mean, you get good at being in crisis when you're an entrepreneur, and
right.
And we want to move into that CEO role or that opportunity to flatten out and actually pick more companies to build. Have a path. This has been a privilege. This has been a privilege.
Deal with Todd. Thanks for joining us, folks. Check us out, Journey to CEO YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment. We want to hear from you. Tell your friends. Come join the community. We're bringing you more CEO lessons just like Todd. We'll probably have Todd back again at some point for even more lessons. TheJourneyToCEO.com is our domain. We're going to be building that out. We're going to have links to different things. Follow me and Ann on social media. Send us a message. We'll get you on our email list. This is going to be a lot of fun, folks. We're looking forward to helping you on your journey from entrepreneur to CEO. Todd, thanks for joining us today. Folks out there, pat yourself on the back for doing the hard work. We'll see you another episode again very soon.